Okay. Uh, there's been a phenomenon going on that I just couldn't remain silent about anymore. What I want to talk about is the fact that Facebook has changed, and a lot of people seem to be freaking out over it. You know, making little posters about it, demanding it be changed back, making their complaints, whatever. And it was funny because I've also talked to some people who are like, how did it change? You know, how much they had noticed how much it had changed, or whatnot. You know, and it's interesting because the level of resistance to the change is blowing my mind. I mean, it's just a piece of software. Some buttons were moved. I don't know. I'm not having a problem with it. I just adjusted to it. What the hell? And it brings on a more important issue for me, that people are resistant to change. What's going to happen to these people in the future? And this is why I want to talk about what's known as the jumping Jesus phenomenon. And that's not a sacrilegious idea. The word Jesus is just in there because it works on a time frame. And I want to connect this up here. So just follow with me for a second. His name was Anton Wilson. I forget his first name, but Wilson was his last name. Let me see if I can look it up here real quick. Robert Anton Wilson, okay? And what the deal was is he came up with this idea, and he even borrowed some of the ideas from somewhere else, that if you took all of the information from the time that man just, happened upon the earth to the age that Jesus lived, and you made that one unit, how much longer would we have to move forward in time before that amount of information doubled? You know, you take all the inventions, fire, the wheel, whatever, books that were written, whatever, you basically take an estimate of how much information was from the dawn of man to the time of Jesus. How long did it take for that amount of information to double? And basically it's estimated at about 1,500 years. Okay? Well, now you look at that and you call that period one Jesus and the other two Jesuses. This is why it's called the jumping Jesus phenomenon. Once again, it's not a religious thing. It's just, measuring the time. And then you say, well, okay, how much longer does it take for the information to double again? And it turns out to be about 250 years. So, it goes from the dawn of man, 10,000 years, whatever, to 1,500 years to 250 years. And the acceleration moves forward. And there's another name for this. There's different ways of looking at it. As far as information processing as opposed to actual information, and that's called, I can't think of the name of it right away, but there are different ways of looking at how information is increasing, how change is increasing. This is something that Terence McKenna talks a lot about. And I'm thinking, these people who couldn't handle some changes to the interface on Facebook and are all bent out of shape about it, what are they going to do when these changes that are accelerating get to the point to where, now we're to the point to where, every 5 years information is doubling. Soon we'll be to a point to where every year information is doubling. Soon we'll be to a point after that, every month, every week. We'll eventually, and it's expected that sometime around 2045, in that era, we're going to hit what's called a singularity. And that's where basically change is happening faster than time can move forward. We reach a point where the scale, if you look at it on a chart, it just curves upward. And we're talking about information doubling by the minute, by the second, by the millisecond. And it sounds ridiculous in our world today, but when you look at how computers exist and the fact that their operations exist in almost a hyper time, nanoseconds, the idea that there could be a virtual world where change is happening and information is increasing so quickly that who's to say by the time we get there what the dynamic will be and how information is discovered. So it brings up an interesting point. If you're the kind of person who saw the Facebook changes and said, you know what, they changed, I'll adjust and move on and go on with my life, moving forward into the future, you'll probably do okay. If you're the type of person who just got all upset about it and couldn't handle it and had to make posters and spread posters about how bad this is and I'm going to get people to sign a petition and we need to change it back, and whether it was a step forward or not, it was a type of change. If you're the person who is that resistant to change, you're not going to make it moving forward. You're going to be, you're not going to evolve mentally. The interesting thing too about this is when in one of these shows about the singularity that I watched, they talked about computer intelligence advancing. I mean, by the time, it's estimated, and these things can be estimated very accurately, because the rate of the cost of processing power, it gets cut in half like every year, and the processing power doubles every year. So you're getting more bang for your buck. The effect that this is going to have is by the year 2020, we will have, well, what they say desktop computers, but hell, by that time they probably will be palm-top computers. But computers will exist that have the capability, the processing complexity of the human mind. Now, let's think about that for a second. Whether we have a neural network program that could actually simulate a human being by that point is not known. But will the hardware exist that will be the equivalent of a human brain? Yes. That's an almost certainty. So when that happens, computers are going to, and also keep this in mind too, and this is one little quick point I want to make. When you want to learn to fly, you can either create a device that operates like a bird and tries to flap its wings and does everything that a bird does, or you can say, well, a bird is the natural model, but the mechanistic model is to have a wing that has lift, a motor to provide air moving across the wing that will provide that lift and a force to move forward. And when we look at intelligence and human intelligence, we can say, well, yeah, let's just try to simulate human intelligence by creating a neural net. And this is something that Ray Kurzweil talks about simulating an actual human brain, actually reproducing a human brain, and they've done that on a small scale with parts of the human brain, inserted chips into people's heads to replace parts of their brains that were modeled off of actually looking at a human brain and reproducing the neural network onto a chip. But just like you don't necessarily have to build a mechanical bird to fly, to have a computer think or at least calculate in a way that resembles thought, you don't have to follow the organic model. So what I'm saying is, by 2020 we can have computers that are thinking and accelerating, and because of the way they process, evolving much faster than we are. And we have to incorporate those computers into ourselves, into our lifestyle, maybe even into our own minds. And if we don't, then they're going to be a runaway process. They're going to take off without us. And just as, if a cow approaches you in a barnyard and says moo, that cow's intent may be, I really want to know you and understand you and find out what you humans are all about. But you're just going to look at the cow and say, you're just a silly cow. All you can say is moo. If we don't learn to change and accept these changes and maybe even integrate ourselves into the computer or the computer into us or however it works, the computer intelligence is going to race so far beyond us that when we try to communicate with it, we'll be like that cow. We'll be like, okay, we've left you running for, 5 weeks. You've improved on your own software. You've evolved. Tell us what you're about. And it'll think, silly human. But, why should I pay attention to you? You don't come anywhere close to thinking on the scale that I can think. So, I guess the bottom line is, for those people who got bent out of shape about this Facebook change and just couldn't handle something that simple, you're not going to survive the intelligence evolution. You're going to go way of the dinosaur. You are the weakest link. Bye-bye. Those of you who just accepted it and moved on with your lives and weren't really fazed by it, you'll probably survive, and there'll probably be great things waiting for you when the singularity occurs, if you can live up until the year 2045, 46, wherever it's expected to happen. And even before we get there, there's going to be a lot of amazing things happening. Another conversation that I keep having is people say, well, why don't we have flying cars? And why don't we have this and that? And my response is, well, we have other things that we didn't think about. We have the internet. We have virtual worlds. I mean, there were only a few fringe people back in the 50s and 60s and 70s who conceived of ideas like a virtual world. So while everybody else is looking for flying cars, what was happening was the internet eventually came into being, and virtual reality will become a bigger part of our lives. And you're not going to need flying cars because you'll be able to go into a virtual, and in some sense we can do this today, go into a virtual world and fly yourself. We didn't count, I mean, the future is not coming at us the way we expect. But that doesn't mean that it's not coming. And it doesn't mean that there aren't still a lot of really insane advancements. We've got contact lenses now that will allow people to see in the dark and have telescopic vision. But we don't know how to put a battery in them yet. So there's just so much stuff that is on the experimental workbench. And it's coming. I suspect that there will be probably a 5-year period where nanotechnology will all of a sudden, I mean, it's being used now at a sort of an experimental level, and there are some discoveries being made with it, but I think that we're going to have a breakthrough at some point. I mean, we can grow diamonds, we can do all sorts of incredible things that we didn't even dream of 20 years ago. So if your measure of the future arriving is a flying car, it may never happen. There may never be need for it. We may evolve to a point to where who would want a flying car? If your expectation is, I think that the future is going to bring forth a lot of incredible things, and I'm willing to accept that change and accept the fact that it might not arrive the way I expect it to, then I think that just like the people who accepted the change with Facebook, having the open mind, you're going to be able to play a role in that future. So, yeah, like I say, I just kind of want to get off my chest because I was just getting sick and tired of seeing everyone bitch and moan about the whole Facebook thing. And, I think I find some consolation in knowing that those people are going to You know, they are the dinosaurs. They are the ones who are going to die out. So I just had to put that point of view forth, and well, let me know what your thoughts are. If you agree, if you disagree, if you think I've left something out, I'd really like to hear what other people have to say. Okay? Peace.